Hey guys, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Ed Loughran here for a tournament recap of the St. John's. Didn't go as planned, but things often don't go as planned in fishing. So I did learn quite a bit during the time I was there. It was an unusual tournament in that we actually had 3 days off because the first 2 days of competition were postponed. And ultimately one was canceled, so it turned into a 3-day tournament. During those couple of days, we had extreme winds. That the St. John's is a tidal river that flows south to north, and it blew all the water out of the river. So the Florida fish, even though they don't mind shallow water, and I was catching fish in a foot or 18 inches of water in practice, those fish, you drop another 6 inches out of that and they get very skittish and they reposition quite a bit. So what I learned was obviously look towards some of the deeper areas, and that continued to hold some of the fish. The first day of the tournament, I only managed to catch one fish. I only had one other bite. It was awful. But it's because my area got trashed by the wind and it got shallow. And then when I tried to adjust, I just simply made the wrong adjustments in the wrong areas. I knew there was an area that I could go to and catch 8 or 9 pounds, 7, 8, 9 pounds. But I didn't do that, and I made a conscious decision not to do that and try to swing for the fences a little bit, because last year I got bogged down in playing it a little too conservative. And by the end of the day, I wish I had gone and caught my 7, 8, 9 pounds. It would have changed things. The second day, I went for my conservative fish because I just wanted to catch a few, because I had had only 2 bites the previous day, and I ended up with one of the better bags of the day, a little over 13 pounds, and that was on my conservative fish. So you look back and with a crystal ball in hindsight, you wonder, well, what would have happened had I gone there? But we all deal with that, and you got to live with the decisions that you make, and you make the best ones that you can in the moment when you're out there, and that's what I did. I just guessed wrong the first day. Second day was a little better. During the entire tournament, it was interesting. I roomed with Chris Zaldain, John Cruz, and Derek Hudnall. Obviously, all incredible fishermen. John ended up doing extremely well, getting second in the tournament. Chris didn't do so well, and a bunch of other really good fishermen. The Johnstons, they didn't do very well from Canada. It's interesting to see how much a year can change. That's another thing I want people to remember about Florida. I don't care where I've been. Almost always things are different in Florida from year to year, even on the same body of water, even at the same time of the month, same time of year. It's always different. So you got to go down to Florida with an open mind, really cover water, try to evaluate what's going on at that time, that year. So that's a very important lesson. A couple of the baits that I use mostly missile baits, soft plastics. You're in Florida, soft plastics are always a good bet. I use the Missile Bait 48 rigged on just a weedless, rigged Texas style, no weight, on a Gamakatsu G-Finesse hybrid worm hook. And I use that on straight braid. That's something a little different. You notice this pen that I have. It's a brown marker. And what I typically do with the 48 is I will color. This brown marker is interesting. It has a notch in it, so it'll let the line go down into it, and you just go up and down. I go pretty slowly to make sure you get adequate coverage. And you do that a couple of times, and that right there will disappear in any kind of tannic water, like on the James River where I fish some, or the Chickahominy River. But in Florida, same thing. So I was throwing straight braid, no fear of break-offs, no worrying about having to tie a knot from braid to fluorocarbon. It was tremendous. The fish that I did catch the second day, I was around some pads. This 15-pound Power Pro Slick 8 will cut through pads like it's nothing. So the fish don't get hung up, they don't get bound up, and the lighter line actually seems to cut through easier as opposed to maybe 50-pound, which you could throw. But the 48 is a bait that I threw, very good bait in Florida, June bug in color. The 48, if people aren't familiar with it, it actually has one end that's a little thicker and one end that's a little thinner. I typically will actually put the thick end on the back, hanging out the back. I will put the hook point and rig it with the small, thinner end up front. It seems to make the bait just have a little bit different action, and the back really shimmies. It's an extremely easy bait to cast and skip around docks, seawalls, like I was doing in some of the canals down at St. John's. The other thing that I was doing, and I know John Cruz was doing, was throwing a drop shot. Now, you'll notice I don't have a bait rigged on this drop shot, but I have the same hook, which is the Gamakatsu G-Finesse hook. And we were throwing a drop shot bait. It's a new bait. You can use it as a drop shot bait, called the Quiver. New for missile baits. It's coming out at the Classic. I'm not allowed to show it. I wish I could, but even John was hiding it down at the St. John's tournament where he got second, using that bait to a great extent. Again, in a June bug color. So that's kind of what I did in the tournament. You can't win them all. I at least bounced back that second day. Very important when you're fishing a long tournament series. We have 8 or 9 events during the year. Every single day counts. Every single fish counts towards Angler of the Year points. So you really do need to make sure that you stay focused the whole time. And even if you have a terrible day and you're in the bottom 10% after the first day, especially in Florida, you can come back. A 10-pounder is right around the corner on any Florida water. So you got to stay in it and stay on target, keep moving forward. And because of that, I didn't change how I was fishing mentally or physically or mechanically, but even when you're beat down, you got to keep going. So that 13-pound plus bag that I caught the second day really did help out a lot, moved me up 20, 23 spots, and that, who knows, could end up helping at the end. I know it's going to help at the end of the year, and hopefully will get me to the Classic.